So, Working Wellbeing's podcast, live at the water cooler. We have our next guest here, who is Jonathan Hill from Anglian Water. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
Is it Jonathan or John?
John's fine, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you prefer?
Well, John, known as John. John
right.
Hill.
So I messed up right at the start, calling you Jonathan.
I won't hold it against you. You're all good.
So tell me more about yourself and your role and your background.
Sure. So I am currently head of Occupational Health and Wellbeing at Anglian Water. Been there 7 years, really enjoy it. Previous to that, I had some experience at Transport for London and Welsh Government, but I graduated as a physio. So slightly unorthodox sort of background for my position at the moment, but it's going well.
Yeah, so talk me through that. So you started as a physio. Did you practice as a physio? Did you do that as a job?
Yeah, so when I sort of left school, I actually played professional sport for a number of years before probably realising it wasn't good enough to continue it.
What sport?
I was a rugby player.
Oh, okay.
And then trained as a physio. Worked for NHS and then some professional sports clubs, which was extremely demanding, sort of 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And then fell into occupational health as a treating physio. And that kind of opened my eyes up to the world of occupational health. The Welsh Government were fantastic at sort of funding training courses. So did every course going for ACPO, became a sort of an ACPO member.
What's ACPO, sorry?
That's the Association of Chartered Physios in Occupational Health and Ergonomics.
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of really helped, get that full understanding of what occupational health's all about. Had a brief spell at Fit for Work, the government kind of scheme, before it all kind of went a bit bust and quite a few of us got made redundant. Fortunate enough to then find a position at Transport for London and then, moved to Anglian Water.
Nice one. So you say unorthodox stuff, but it's really interesting through these conversations that the routes that people take into these careers, because there is no, necessarily like career path that you take to be a head of occupational health or a head of wellbeing or whatever it may be, they can be really quite varied.
Yeah, I think I mentioned the sport because the similarities between working in a medical team for professional sports club and occupational health are extremely similar. You have people that are injured and can't do their job, and therefore they need rehabilitation. Sometimes you've got multiple stakeholders with other members of the kind of sport and environment, whether that's coaches or S&C staff. You make recommendations as far as their kind of return to play and phase them back in. So the process is very, very similar. And I think looking at high performance environment in sport, there's a lot businesses can learn as well. Yeah.
Like what?
It's kind of thinking of it as you've got a professional sports athlete, but you've also got a industrial athlete as well. So how can you get your employees to be as physically and mentally resilient to enable them to do their job, without the fear of injury? So.
Got you. And what does mental resilience look like to you?
I like the plate analogy. So if you kind of work hard at sort of building mental resilience, whether that's through numerous methods, as far as it could be journaling or mindfulness or taking time out, biophilia, a whole range of things you can do, that kind of widens and strengthens your plate. So when things do come along, you're better adapt to kind of deal with them.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Nice way of putting it. So how do you avoid the risk that with the focus on physical and mental resilience, it forces the responsibility solely onto the employee rather than looking at the system and the environment and the role that the employer plays?
I think you've seen it more in sort of the younger generation, that there's an expectation that the employer will take care of their physical health, their mental health, their financial health, and they do have a role to play, but also there needs to be some accountability on the individual as well. I think we don't need more information. I think we've got so much information. I think it's confusing, and it's kind of doing the simple things well. So I think everyone's looking for the next health and wellbeing fad, the next app, but ultimately everybody knows you need to take 10,000 steps a day, eat 5 fruit and veg, sleep 8 hours, and it's kind of what's stopping that individual from doing that. So there is a bit of self-accountability definitely to kind of do the right things.
That's a theme, actually. That you just stumbled on something there in terms of a theme that's come out from today, because it's really interesting. There's lots of, stands and innovative products and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But through the conversations, you then, and the industry seems to have gone that way. But then it's like, well, but we can't forget the fundamentals. The fundamentals is like, if your physical fitness isn't as good as it should be, or your nutrition's not as good as it should be, it will affect everything else around it. You can have as many fancy apps as you like, but yeah, if those things aren't in place, there's still a risk to the individual.
100%. 100%. We know we get weaker as we get older, yet we stop moving. We become a lot less mobile. Working from home, you're sort of doing 200 odd sets a day because your environment's a lot smaller. I think from the mental perspective, we communicate, so much on different platforms. We forget to have a good conversation like this, face to face, and actually talk things through. And if line managers, had that competency to have good conversations with employees, I'm sure sickness absence rates would be a lot less. Yeah.
Interesting. So you said that you're the head of occupational health, but you've just hired a head of wellbeing? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we've got a new health and wellbeing lead.
Health and wellbeing lead. So that's interesting that health and wellbeing sits within occupational health. Is that right?
Yeah. We were on a panel today discussing, there is no single model that companies use. Sometimes you have internal, external occ health. Sometimes they sit under safety. Sometimes they sit under HR. The way we structured it, we sit under safety, and sort of the wellbeing lead is under the occupational health team. Yeah.
Yeah, and that works for you. So what was the outcome of the panel that you said? Was it just that it is what works best for that?
Yeah.
Organization?
There is no right answer. It's kind of understanding the company's priorities, strategies, and kind of risk profile, and that will help determine whether it's under safety or under HR.
Yeah.
If there's a real focus on sickness absence and retention, then maybe it's HR. But yeah, the links between occupational health and wellbeing, there's a lot of synergy there as far as health promotion and sort of that holistic wellbeing approach as well.
Yeah. So why does that work for Europe, for Anglian?
Why does what? Sorry,
it being positioned in that place. Why is that the fit? Why is it not in HR at Anglian Water? Could it just as easily be?
Yeah, I think it's key to have the right person. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of maybe employing a head of wellbeing that has no kind of health background, that may have come from HR and very limited budget, and they're on their own. So wellbeing's peppered in everything that we do, every kind of process and department, and they need to be part of a team. They need that wider support and champions and advocates. So they can't be siloed. They need to be part of a larger team, and they need to have a good understanding of evidence-based health measures, and have the ability to kind of look at data to really have a targeted approach at what they do. Yeah.
So do you think the industry could or should do more to have, for example, a framework or a standard that exists for health and wellbeing leaders?
Definitely, yeah. I think you've seen some good examples from NMC, ACPO with physios, this competency framework, at different levels, because one of the issues with the word wellbeing, it means so many different things to different people. Yeah.
And
this wellbeing whitewashing can be an issue. It might be referred to as fluffy, and it is really hard when there is no ROI necessarily attached to it. It's really impossible to demonstrate your worth. But ultimately, we know it's the right thing to do, and it does have an impact. And if that wellbeing role can get better at proving that, then we'll only get more and more wellbeing employees in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wonder. It was a bit of a leading question because I wonder whether it needs a bit more around the standard around that. It's great. We talked about before these squiggly career routes that people take and the background that they have, and there's a certain benefit to that. That there are some industries, I'm not going to slag off certain, I don't know, like IT or finance, I don't know enough about them, where everyone does the same thing, and there's a risk with that, right? So there's a benefit in terms of diversity of backgrounds, but then if you don't have a standard that allows those individuals to see if they're doing the right things or the right things well, there's a risk that we just get all sorts of different approaches.
It's a balance, isn't it? It's a fine art, because that standardise would help with classification, I guess, but also the role needs to be aligned with the business needs. So many different sectors will have different kind of psychosocial hazards, will have different physical hazards, and therefore the role may be slightly different in different organisations. But yeah.
So you mentioned the word psychosocial hazards, so I'm definitely going to geek out on that for a little bit. You were saying before that you've done ISO 45003. Can you tell me a bit about that whole?
Yeah, no, of course. Good experience. A lot of work to go into it, but
so what did it look like?
What does it look like? It's a global standard, and it helps that quality assurance. Somebody externally coming in and kind of lifting up stones, kind of making sure you got the right policies and processes in place. But it's actually kind of viewing this whole mental health agenda as a hazard, as a workplace hazard, and important to identify the causations of that. So it's a really large risk assessment. It's a evolution of the HSE stress management standards. So they'll talk about sort of 5 factors with demands and controls and support. And this risk assessment looks about 52 different hazards within the workplace. And working through that kind of risk assessment with various stakeholders, you would identify who is at harm from those hazards, the level of harm, and then what have you got in place. So it'll look at it from a primary, secondary and tertiary kind of control measures.
Yes.
The primary being around sort of policies and procedures.
Job design, right?
Yeah, all those kind of things. And it's not always evident that you think you've got these in place until you actually speak to HR departments, safety departments, and you realise, oh, we do have a policy for that. It is in place, but it's just that awareness. The secondary control measures about awareness and training, and then the tertiary around support. And once you've kind of filled in this risk assessment, you can really see the gaps where, actually, we don't do anything for this hazard from a support point of view. And then what are the opportunities then to do something about it?
Yeah.
So it was, we got, it's about 3 years ago, I think, we got accredited, and that's under kind of constant review every 3 years.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, so you're coming up to the review, or?
We are, October. So
right,
looking forward to that. Thank you.
So how do you identify the psychosocial hazards within the order? Have you got a risk assessment process that you use?
Yes, yeah. So there's 52 different kind of criteria that kind of relate to the workplace. We do it through consultation with employees, company surveys. We have quite a comprehensive sort of love to listen survey that goes out every year. We have working groups. So when we first did it, there's a group of sort of 10, 15 of us stakeholders from all over the business. And we kind of thought, who are we to be doing this? This needs to be rolled out to different business units because they're the ones on the ground. They're the ones that really know the true picture. So we've got a number of different working groups with their own risk assessments that kind of go through it. Yeah.
That's interesting. So is that a constant ongoing thing? It's not just, did you see some organisations, they just risk assess when there's an issue, really? Or when it's asked for. Sometimes risk assessments are put purely in the realm of a manager having a conversation, a return to work conversation with an individual, for example.
Yeah.
But you'd use them more proactively. Is that right?
We've tried to, yeah. I think a lot of companies are guilty of really focusing on the support element and the reactive element. It's kind of something's happened, let's do the risk assessment. And going through this process, the ISO 45003 really made us think about how do we prevent it? What policies have we got in place to actually stop this happening in the first place? We've got a management of employee wellbeing, it's got risk assessments in, it's got wellness action plans in, but they're not mandatory. How can we get ahead of the curve to stop these things happening in the first place? So I think that was one of the main lessons learned from it. Is let's stop worrying about the apps and the support, and then kind of put a little bit more focus on making sure that line managers are following the policies and procedures that are there.
Yeah. So from you don't need to talk about the organisation. You can talk about you personally. Okay. What's your driver to do this sort of stuff? Is it a moral obligation? Is it a financial obligation because you think it's good for business? Is it a legal obligation? Because whilst the ISO standard isn't necessarily a legal obligation as such, although the health and safety law is.
Yeah.
You know, it's very rare that organisations, let's be honest, if they don't have 45,000 for it, they're not going to be audited necessarily tomorrow, he says. But is it a legal thing? Is it a moral thing? Is it financial? You're going to say a bit of both, aren't you?
All of the above.
Yeah.
All of the above. Next question.
Yeah.
I think from a financial point of view, it's really important to sort of demonstrate the value added. You know, if we're doing these processes, we are reducing sickness absence, and that's really important for our directors to see that. I think there's the legal point of view, sort of under the Health and Safety Act. In my world, there's a lot of health surveillance as well, which is a legal requirement that has to be carried out. But ultimately, I think Anglian Water, more concerned with is just the right thing to do. Looking after our employees is seen as the right thing to do, and it fits in with our values.
Yeah. So all three, that's fine. That's fine. Again, it was a difficult question to answer, right? Yeah, I don't care about the moral obligation. just the money. The money. No, you were never going to say that. No. So you mentioned in that answer, the stuff that the board needs to know about. Do you have a set or a single board level KPI that you hold yourself accountable to?
We've got a few different ones. So there's a target of kind of sickness absence being sort of below 5 days lost per employee. So there's lots of teams that are involved in, keeping people fit and healthy in work, ensuring that work is good for people's mental and physical health. We have a sort of wellbeing plan. There's different matrix on that to sort of look at engagement levels. And then we have sort of love to listen survey, and kind of recently we've in addition to the wellbeing questions, we've looked at a lot of questions around psychological safety to get a score on that as a comparison. Yeah.
So psychological safety and I can speak up without the fear of negative repercussions, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's very much a buzzword lately, and I think it's definitely here to stay. And relates to the high performance as well. And just really important that people do feel free to speak up.
Yeah. Have you seen any data from the data that you collected, or are you pretty early doors in terms of what that correlates with?
It's interesting because what are we aiming for? So I haven't seen any research around this is the ideal number. Yeah. We don't want 100% psychological safety, because if you have that, an environment that people are constantly opening up, challenging, that takes away about some of the accountabilities. There are times where you just have to do something because it's in relation to safety, or there's certain rules around it. So, so some of the kind of the voice doesn't has much of an impact because you just need to do the right thing. But so what is that? What is the ideal level? So it's the first time we've done it, and it will give us a benchmark for kind of future surveys. Yeah.
That'd be interesting. But you can even start to look within the company, right? Are there certain departments or areas or teams where perhaps does that correlate? Maybe it's as simple as, does that correlate with sickness absence, or does that correlate with some of the other measures that you pick up? Exactly.
Yeah, that's the next step. So we've done it for the company, but we want to break it down to different teams and see if there's any other data that kind of tells a story. Really.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm geeking out.
No, geek away.
Data. So I was going to ask you about AI, bit of a theme that came through this. How is AI overlapping with your world? Is it yet? What do you see as the future there?
Not yet. There are talks about how we can, better extract information from all of these management ofs that we have, these processes that might be quite long because they need to have, cover legal kind of aspects within them. We're looking to start using it for mental health and physical health triage. So currently employees can self-refer for both, and they can fill out an online form, they can ring up, book an appointment for a triage, following that triage get treatment normally within a week, which is great. But we've got staff who are working 24/7, out of hours. So through the use of AI, they can talk about their symptoms and then be triaged for a treat-in appointment there and then. So it's a little cheaper, but a lot faster as well.
Yeah. So is that something that you created internally, or is that an external product?
External product,
right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So we partner with IPRS, who
we know those.
Yeah. Who helping us introduce it.
Yeah. I think someone from IPRS was on the podcast yesterday, I think.
Okay.
He says, well, so he's not. No, maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it was last event. Anyway, it's been a long 2 days.
I bet.
AI. Do you think it is a psychosocial hazard or is it a control measure?
Both again. Yeah, to sit on the fence, both. I think speaking to another delegate, they're talking about a presenter who was going through a bit of a panic attack, and she asked IA what she could do, and they gave her that immediate support straight away, then followed some instruction, and then it improved things. Like anything, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, and you can't fully believe everything it says. I think everybody's using it, and it's scary to think about how many jobs might be replaced as a result of it. But it is the future, and I think it's important that people get on board with it quicker, because probably take over sooner or later.
It will take over.
Take over.
There's the clip.
Terminator. Here we come.
Yeah. I find it fascinating. Again, it's a fairly kind of leading question in the sense that I've got an opinion on it, but absolutely, I'm kind of all in with AI. I think it's amazing what it can do.
Yeah.
But then you hear some slightly weird and wonderful studies. Particularly, I came across one last week out of China, group in China Academic Institute, that were utilizing AI and facial recognition technology to basically look at the faces of all their employees to tell how happy or sad they were and feed that data back. Which, on the one hand, great. That sounds like great objective data. But in a more human way, what the heck? What are you talking about? Don't do that.
I think Anglian Water are currently looking at plant face, people-plant interface, and using AI to see where people walk and identify hazards. And it's like, oh, fantastic, really good use. I think if people use it for therapeutic, one of the 4 pillars of our well-being, financial, mental, and it's social. Social well-being. People crave that social connection. People want to interact with humans. The research about it's one of the main things that talks about longevity. More than being obese, that kind of stuff. How many social connections you have. So, I think it's amazing. Hundreds of usage, but we can't lose that social connection as well.
Absolutely. So you're saying because ChatGPT is my best friend, that's not a good thing to do.
No, I'll be careful.
Be careful what I tell you. Fair enough. Right then. So kind of final couple of questions. Well, are there any questions that you wish I'd asked you today that I didn't ask you?
No, I've just come along for a nice chat.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I've enjoyed today.
What are you excited about in terms of the industry going forward, or next 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, a long time?
What am I excited about? I think that's a really good question, because we spend a lot of time talking about the hazards and supportive measures, talking about the risks and dangers of working from home or hazardous environments where it would be. But what we're excited about, I think, an environment, a workplace where is good for people's physical and mental health. People understanding the importance of work. In the world of occupational health, we know when people are out of work, they're more likely to have poor physical and mental health.
Absolutely.
And the longer somebody's off work, the harder it is for them to return. So getting that message across and making sure, your working environment is as enjoyable as possible.
Health and wellbeing should be an outcome, right? Rather than an input. It's an outcome of good work and safe work as well. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty excited about that as well. We'll get there. I'm not excited about the fact that all the data's trending in the opposite direction and everyone's getting more miserable and ill there.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? We're kind of got great awareness, we've got great support, yet figures are still continuing to climb, and asking ourselves, why is that? I think that there's lots of reasons. We get deep into it as far as living in a comfort kind of society. Everything's just so easy and automated now, and it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the basics. Just kind of keep moving, keep talking.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good place to end. So the last question I will ask you, because I ask all my guests, is where can people find you if you want them to find you? That is.
I guess I've got a very average LinkedIn profile. That could be one place.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And can they hear about any of the work that you're doing with Anglian? Is it mostly events like this, or?
We haven't done as many of these events recently. It's the first one in a while. we've got a new CEO that's come in and kind of really shaking things up in an exciting way. So we're kind of very busy delivering a 24-month plan at the moment, making sure people are safe every day. So yeah, some exciting work going on in the main job at the moment.
Yeah, got you. So watch this space. Hey, right, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
Really appreciate it.
Cheers,
and,
mate.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to the podcast. This episode is brought to you by Wellhub, the corporate wellness platform transforming how companies care for their teams with a single subscription. Get an exclusive free trial using the link in the description below.